Cougar Sports Saturday. Kyle Ireland, Mitch Harper here live from East Carolina University Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium in Greenville. Mitch, what have you made so far of our trip? We've been here a little over 24 hours, or almost 24 hours now, and it was definitely a different environment when we got out of the airport. You felt the humidity, you felt the heat here, a bit warmer than Utah, but it really hasn't been as humid, and I guess I've maybe overthought that coming into North Carolina, but I think it'll be a really nice night for the game.
I get the sense, and I'd probably have to see, I don't know if there's actual data on this. I get the sense
you're all about the data.
East Carolina's probably got the biggest group of five fan base, I think, in the group of five. Like, they got a legit following, and I think that's what's going to be pretty cool about this. Like, diving more into the history of East Carolina football. Like, I mean, being a college football junkie from afar, you know about guys like David Garrard, like Chris Johnson. I love that. I remember watching that Hawaii Bowl on Christmas Eve, and I remember Chris Johnson was amazing in the NFL. But, there's good history at East Carolina. But then just actually getting on campus, and then you see, the stadium, you see the fans in Greenville, they're excited. It's there's family weekend from what I understand, too, so there's a lot of parents on campus as well. But, I think it's probably a pretty big fan base in the group of five. Like, I would say right there with Boise State in terms of just size of fan base. They had a huge turnout last week on the road. So, again, I just think this is a really cool matchup. Like, I don't think if you're BYU, you travel 2 time zones to face many group of 5 teams. I think if there's an exception, you make it for someone like East Carolina. And this was a venue that BYU lost at 8 years ago. And that was a low point for BYU football because at that point, BYU had the worst offense in college football. East Carolina at the time had probably the worst defense in the sport that season. And BYU only had 10 points with about 3:30 to go. They got a late touchdown to make it look a little bit better. They only have 17 points in that game 8 seasons ago, and that was one of the worst seasons in BYU football history. But this will be a really good matchup tonight. And East Carolina head coach Blake Harrell, he's been talking this week about getting ready for that guy, quarterback number 47, Bear Bachmeier. Here's what he said of the keys to playing against Bear Bachmeier.
First thing I think is just stop the run, so you put him in a situation where he has to be a quarterback. The crowd knows to be huge. And, again, they've had 2 home games. So when they're on offense, it's been pretty quiet for him. Now it's all of a sudden he's on the road. He's across the country. I think he's originally from maybe California. So he's coming to the East Coast maybe for the first time. So let's make sure we give him a warm welcome. And then defensively, we got to disguise some looks, give him some different things in there. I think right now he's more locked in on a certain receiver and how they do things and getting those guys open on the deep sell routes and deep benders. So we got to make sure we take those first reads away and make him get to a second or third guy, and that'll also give us a chance up front to get home.
Here's more from Blake Harrell. He talking about Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker, players that stand out to him on BYU's defense.
The linebackers, kind of the guys that stand out to me. Number 17, Jack Kelly, and then the other linebacker, Isaiah Glasker, number 16, is pretty athletic. So those are kind of the guys that stand out for him.
We were on the plane ride with Jack Kelly's parents coming in. Jack, he looks exactly like his dad. Seeing Jack's dad in person, they are like clones, two twins. But what do you think of that commentary that Coach Harrell said about trying to stop Bear Bachmeier for BYU?
Yeah, I think that you look back to that 22 game, Mitch. Blake Harrell was the defensive coordinator here for East Carolina in that matchup where they took down BYU, so he's familiar with Kalani Sitake and then this Aaron Roderick offense as well, and so. It's not something that he hasn't seen before, and so I'm sure that there are bits and pieces of the offense that have obviously changed over the past few seasons, but there's familiarity there, and I think that matchup with Bear, trying to get him sped up, I think will be a key for this East Carolina defense to try and rattle BYU's offense a little bit. I look for a couple of things from BYU's end, Mitch. I hope that they're able to establish the run with LJ Martin. We've seen the success that LJ has had on the ground through the first 2 games of the season. If they can establish the ground game against this front 7, I think that'll bode well for Bear to be able to have some success, because we did see how they threw the ball more with Bear from week 1 to week 2 against Stanford, going from 11 pass attempts to 27 against the Cardinal. And so it's not that BYU hasn't thrown the ball more from the first game to the second game, but we talked about this last week where we'd like to see them open up the playbook a little bit more, because the amount of throws that have been beyond 20 yards have been limited. You had that one to Chase Roberts against Stanford there that was over the middle, and I think that if Bear can, have something stable like the running game to lean on in this environment, I think that'll bode well for being able to open up the playbook a little bit more. I'd like to see them, there is the question mark with who's that second option now that JoJo Phillips is out. You got Chase Roberts. Who's going to be that second wide out to step up to be able to help Bear Bachmeier out? Is it Carson Ryan stepping up from the tight end position? Is it Cody Hagan who emerges on the other side from Chase? I'm interested to see kind of how those things play out on the offensive side tonight.
BYU's offense has some intriguing storylines heading into this game. I think the defense, BYU's defense is legit. Last year they were the number one defense in the Big 12. I expect that their high-level production that they put out the first 2 weeks, I don't know if you can expect, holding teams out of the end zone every single week, but they've been excellent so far. They got the task tonight to try to slow down the up-tempo attack of East Carolina's offense, which is led by Kaiten Hauser and Kalani Sitake. He's very familiar with Hauser from his days back as a high school player at St. John Bosco. This was Kalani on Hauser.
Talented. He's an accurate passer. And he has a great touch on the ball that he throws. So it's easy for receivers to catch the deep balls. He knows when to take some off. I mean, he's got great vision with his what he sees and goes with his looks. He makes checks. I mean, he's a complete player at quarterback, and he's seasoned. I mean, you could see that he's used to being on the field and he feels really comfortable in this offense. So give their coaches a lot of credit. They went with him last year, I think, when they decided he was going to be the guy, and you saw the huge momentum that he was able to gain going into their bowl game and everything. I mean, this is a really talented team, and he's a very talented quarterback. I saw that when he was in high school, and so he's doing exactly what you would think of, and very consistently doing it, and getting the most out of his guys. So this will be, like I said before, it's going to be a great challenge for Jay Hill and the staff, and our guys need to be ready for this because it's going to be a fun one. We haven't seen anything like it yet.
East Carolina is 17th nationally in seconds per play, 23 seconds. They are an up-tempo attack, so really curious to see how BYU secondary, which has a little bit of cornerback by committee with Trey Alexander, Evan Johnson. You'll hear from Evan Johnson coming up a little bit later in the show. You caught up with Evan this week at practice. And then Maury Bamba, Tavion Beasley as well at that nickel position. Very curious to see, because this is the first time they're getting tested. Portland State had no threat. Stanford was no threat through the air. So this will be a great test for BYU secondary to see how they handle a high-powered passing offense. Taking a break, more BYU East Carolina coverage next here on KSL News Radio.